On the morning of June 28, 1914, a single gunshot echoed through the streets of Sarajevo, a city in the Austro-Hungarian province of Bosnia. Within hours, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg, were dead. That bullet did not merely end two lives, it triggered a chain reaction that plunged the world into World War I, reshaped global politics, and altered the course of the 20th century. Who was Archduke Franz Ferdinand? Archduke Franz Ferdinand was born in 1863, a member of the powerful Habsburg dynasty that ruled Austria-Hungary. He became heir to the throne after the suicide of Crown Prince Rudolf in 1889. Though often portrayed as rigid and authoritarian, Franz Ferdinand was a complex figure. He supported reforms within the empire favored, granting greater autonomy to Slavic regions, opposed war with Russia, fearing it would destroy Europe. Ironically, the man whose death sparked a global war was personally against large-scale conflict. A powder keg called the Balkans. By the early 20th century, the Balkans were one of the most unstable regions in Europe. Key tensions included declining power of the Ottoman Empire, rising Slavic nationalism, Austria-Hungary's annexation of Bosnia-Herzegovina, in 1908 Serbian ambitions to unite South Slavs into a single nation. Many Bosnian Serbs resented Austro-Hungarian rule. Secret nationalist groups, including the Black Hand, believed violence was the only way to achieve independence. June 28, 1914. The assassination in Sarajevo. Franz Ferdinand visited Sarajevo to observe military exercises, an act seen by nationalists as provocative, especially since June 28 was a sacred Serbian nationalist date, Vidovdan. The assassination plot. A group of young Bosnian Serb conspirators, supported indirectly by Serbian intelligence elements, lined the Archduke's motorcade route. First attempt, a bomb was thrown but missed, injuring others, fatal encounter. Later that day, by a tragic coincidence, the Archduke's car stopped near Gavrilo Princip. A 19-year-old nationalist Princip fired two shots, killing Franz Ferdinand and Sophie. Those two bullets changed history. The July crisis, from assassination to World War. The assassination alone did not cause World War I. It was the reaction that mattered. Chain reaction. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia, issued a harsh ultimatum. Serbia accepted most demands, but not all. Austria-Hungary declared war. July 28, 1914. Russia mobilized to protect Serbia. Germany backed Austria-Hungary. France supported Russia. Britain entered after Germany invaded Belgium. Within weeks, Europe was at war. Why one bullet mattered so much? The assassination mattered because it struck a fragile system already on the brink of collapse. Entangled alliances, arms race and militarism, imperial rivalries, nationalist movements. The bullet was the spark, not the fuel, but without it, the explosion might have been delayed or avoided. Global consequences. World War I resulted in over 16 million deaths, collapse of empires, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian, German, creation of new nations, political instability that led to World War II, the rise of ideologies like fascism and communism. Thus, the Sarajevo assassination reshaped the modern world. Historical irony. One of history's great ironies is that Franz Ferdinand opposed war with Serbia and Russia, supported reforms that might have eased nationalist tensions. His death removed a moderating influence, leaving hardliners in control. Conclusion. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand is a powerful reminder of how individual actions can trigger global consequences. A single moment, shaped by nationalism, miscalculation, and coincidence, unleashed a conflict that transformed nations and defined a century. The bullet fired in Sarajevo did not just kill a man, it shattered an era. Part 2. Aftermath, Trials, and Long-Term Impact. The fate of the assassin. Gavrilo Princip. After the assassination, Gavrilo Princip was immediately arrested. Because he was 19 years old, he was too young to be executed under Austro-Hungarian law. Sentenced to 20 years in prison, suffered from tuberculosis. Died in prison in 1918, before the war ended. Princip believed he was a hero fighting for Slavic freedom. History, however, remembers him as the man whose actions helped ignite the deadliest war the world had yet seen. The Sarajevo Trial. The trial of Princip and his co-conspirators revealed links between the assassins and Serbian nationalist networks, involvement of members connected to the Black Hand. Poor planning mixed with extraordinary coincidence, Austria-Hungary used the trial as justification to blame Serbia, though direct Serbian government involvement was never fully proven. Austria-Hungary without Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand's death deeply weakened the empire's leadership. While his loss was crucial, he planned federal reforms to give Slavs more representation, opposed aggressive war policies, acted as a counterbalance to military hardliners. When Emperor Franz Joseph died in 1916, there was no strong reformer left to hold the empire together. By 1918, Austria-Hungary collapsed entirely. The collapse of empires. The war triggered by the assassination destroyed centuries-old empires. Austro-Hungarian Empire dissolved into multiple nations. Ottoman Empire, replaced by modern Turkey and mandates Russian Empire, collapsed into revolution and communism. German Empire became the Weimar Republic. All of this traced back to the diplomatic explosion following June 28, 1914. How the assassination changed warfare. World War I introduced modern warfare on an unprecedented scale. Trench warfare, machine guns, poison gas, submarines. Total war affecting civilians. The conflict reshaped military strategy forever and proved that industrialized war could devastate entire societies. Seeds of World War II. The assassination indirectly led to conditions that caused another global conflict. Treaty of Versailles humiliated Germany, economic collapse, fueled extremism, borders drawn without ethnic consideration, caused instability, rise of Adolf Hitler, and fascism. Thus, the bullet fired in Sarajevo echoed again in 1939. Memory and controversy. Today, the assassination remains controversial. In Serbia, Princip is often remembered as a freedom fighter. In Bosnia, views are deeply divided. In Western history, he is seen as a terrorist whose act unleashed catastrophe. A small bridge in Sarajevo, Latin Bridge, still stands where history changed forever. Lessons from the Sarajevo assassination. Historians draw key lessons from the event. Nationalism can unite or destroy political systems under stress or vulnerable to sudden shocks. Individual actions can alter global history. Diplomacy failures can turn crises into catastrophes. Conclusion: a moment that reshaped the world. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was not just a murder, it was a turning point between old empires and the modern world. What began as a local political act became a global tragedy because of fear, alliances, and poor leadership decisions. History reminds us that peace is fragile, and that a single moment can change everything. Chronological timeline: from assassination to World War June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and Sophie are assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, July 5, 1914. Germany gives Austria-Hungary the blank check, promising full support, July 23, 1914. Austria-Hungary issues a harsh ultimatum to Serbia, July 25, 1914. Serbia accepts most demands but rejects those violating sovereignty. July 28, 1914. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, July 30th to August 4th, 1914. Russia mobilizes, Germany declares war on Russia and France. Germany invades Belgium. Britain enters the war. By August 1914, World War I begins, involving most major world powers. Key figures in the Sarajevo crisis: Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, supported federal reforms, opposed war with Russia and Serbia. Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg, his wife and political supporter, often excluded from royal events, died beside her husband. Gavrilo Princip, Bosnian, Serb nationalist member of Young Bosnia, believed assassination would bring freedom. Dragutin Dimitrijević, Apis, leader of the Black Hand, Serbian military intelligence officer, later executed by Serbia in 1917. Emperor Franz Joseph, ruler of Austria-Hungary, aged and politically conservative, approved war against Serbia, the role of chance and mistakes. Historians emphasize how coincidence shaped the assassination. The bomb failed earlier in the day. Franz Ferdinand changed his route. The driver took a wrong turn. Princip happened to be nearby. Had any one factor changed, the assassination might have failed. Historical interpretations. Who was responsible? 1. The assassin's view. Princip believed he was striking against oppression, not starting a world war. 2. The Serbian government. While nationalist groups existed, direct government responsibility remains debated. 3. Austria-Hungary used the assassination as an opportunity to crush Serbian nationalism. 4. Germany encouraged aggressive action, escalating a regional conflict. 5. Europe as a whole. The alliance system and militarism ensured war was almost inevitable. Was World War I inevitable? Many historians argue that Europe in 1914 was a loaded gun. The assassination merely pulled the trigger. Others believe better diplomacy could have localized the conflict, cooler leadership might have prevented escalation. The debate continues. Symbolism of the bullet. The bullet symbolizes the death of old diplomacy, the collapse of imperial Europe, the beginning of modern total war. It stands as a metaphor for how small events can unleash massive consequences. The story of Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination is not just about violence. It is about choices, systems, and consequences. The bullet fired by a young nationalist exposed the fragility of global politics and reshaped the world. In 1914, Sarajevo stood at the cultural and political crossroads of East and West. Recently annexed by Austria-Hungary, the city was ethnically mixed. Bosnian Serbs, Croats, Muslims, and others lived under imperial rule. For nationalists, Sarajevo symbolized foreign domination. For Vienna, it was proof of imperial authority. This tension made the city a powder keg waiting for a spark. The assassination route, a chain of coincidences. The Archduke's motorcade followed a planned route along the Appel Quay, passing several conspirators stationed along the road. Key moments. A bomb attack failed earlier in the procession. Franz Ferdinand insisted on visiting the wounded. The driver took a wrong turn near Latin Bridge. The car stopped directly in front of Gavrilo Princip. History turned on a single mistaken turn. Latin Bridge, where history changed. The Latin Bridge is one of the most symbolic locations in modern history. Here, Princip fired 2 shots. Franz Ferdinand was hit in the neck. Sophie was struck in the abdomen. Both died within minutes. Today, the bridge remains standing, quiet, ordinary, and haunting, marking the exact place where the modern world was violently reshaped. Vienna. The empire responds. News of the assassination reached Vienna within hours. The reaction was less grief than political calculation. Military leaders demanded action. Diplomats prepared ultimatums. Emperor Franz Joseph approved harsh measures. Vienna became the command center of decisions that transformed a local murder into a global war. Europe on the brink, the alliance map. By 1914, Europe was divided into armed camps. Triple Alliance Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy, initially. Triple Entente Britain, France, Russia. Once Austria-Hungary acted, the dominoes fell rapidly, pulling the entire continent and, eventually the world, into war. Why geography mattered. The assassination mattered not just because of who was killed, but where it happened. The Balkans were Europe's most unstable region. Borders ignored ethnic realities. Great powers competed for influence. Sarajevo was not just a city, it was the fault line of Europe. Conclusion. The geography of the assassination shows that history is shaped not only by people, but by places. Streets, bridges, capitals, and borders all played their role in turning one violent act into a world-changing event. In Sarajevo, geography and destiny collided. A new kind of war, a new kind of world. The assassination in Sarajevo did not only start World War I, it ended the old world order. The conflict destroyed 19th-century diplomacy and gave birth to the modern political, military, and social systems we live with today. World War I was the first industrialized global war, and its consequences still shape international relations. The end of old empires. By 1918, four empires that had ruled for centuries collapsed. Austro-Hungarian Empire, split into Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. Ottoman Empire, replaced by Turkey and Middle Eastern mandates. Russian Empire, overthrown by the Bolshevik Revolution. German Empire became a fragile republic. This redrawing of borders created new nations, but also new conflicts. Birth of modern nationalism. The assassination was rooted in nationalism, and the war intensified it. Ethnic self-determination became a global demand. Borders were drawn without fully considering ethnic realities. Minority conflicts increased in Eastern Europe and the Balkans. Many of today's regional tensions trace their origins back to post-1918 borders. Political revolutions and new ideologies. The war triggered dramatic ideological change. Communism rose in Russia, fascism emerged in Italy and Germany, democracy expanded in some regions, authoritarianism strengthened elsewhere. The political instability created after the war set the stage for World War II. The rise of the United States as a global power. Before 1914, Europe dominated world politics. After the war, European powers were economically weakened. The United States emerged as a major military and financial power. America became a key player in global diplomacy. The shift in power began with the chain reaction triggered by Sarajevo. Changes in society and daily life. World War I transformed everyday life. Women entered factories and workplaces in large numbers. Traditional class structures weakened. Advances in medicine and technology. Accelerated war trauma led to new understanding of mental health. The modern social world was born from wartime necessity, creation and failure of the League of Nations. To prevent future wars, world leaders created the League of Nations. However, it lacked military power. The United States never joined. It failed to stop aggression in the 1930s. This failure directly contributed to the outbreak of World War II. The assassination's long shadow. A single act of violence in 1914 led to two world wars, the Cold War decolonization movements, the creation of the United Nations. Few events in history have had such a long and global impact. Conclusion. The bullet fired at Archduke Franz Ferdinand did not simply start a war, it reshaped civilization. Modern borders, global politics, ideological conflicts, and international institutions all trace part of their origins back to that moment in Sarajevo. History did not just change, it accelerated. Part 6. Lessons for today's world and global politics. Why the Sarajevo assassination still matters today. More than a century later, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand remains deeply relevant. It is studied not only as a historical event, but as a warning about how fragile peace can be when nationalism, fear, and poor diplomacy collide. Modern international relations still reflect lessons learned, often painfully, from 1914. Lesson 1. Nationalism can unite or destroy nationalism inspired Gavrilo Princip and his fellow conspirators. While nationalism can strengthen identity and independence, extreme nationalism can dehumanize opponents, justify violence, destabilize multi-ethnic states. The Balkans in 1914 show how unchecked nationalism can turn political goals into catastrophic conflict, a lesson still visible in modern regional wars. Lesson 2. Alliances can escalate small conflicts. The assassination was a local event, but alliances turned it into a global war. In 1914, countries were bound by rigid military agreements. Mobilization plans left little room for negotiation. One declaration of war triggered many others. Today's military alliances still carry similar risks if diplomacy fails. Lesson 3. Diplomacy must be stronger than pride. The July crisis demonstrated how pride, threats, and ultimatums can replace dialogue. Key failures included Austria-Hungary's refusal to negotiate Germany's unconditional support, slow and unclear communication, Modern diplomacy emphasizes negotiation precisely because 1914 showed what happens when it collapses. Lesson 4. Leaders' decisions matter more than events. The assassination did not force World War I. Leaders chose war. War was avoidable at several moments. Political leaders prioritized honor and power. Compromise was seen as weakness. History teaches that leadership decisions can either prevent disaster or accelerate it. Lesson 5. Violence often produces the opposite result. Princip hoped the assassination would bring freedom to South Slavs. Instead, it caused millions of deaths, destruction of his homeland. Decades of instability. Violence rarely delivers the future its perpetrators imagine. Lesson 6. Peace requires constant maintenance. Europe in 1914 believed war was unlikely, until it wasn't. Peace depends on continuous dialogue, trust-building measures, fair political systems, willingness to compromise. The Sarajevo assassination reminds us that peace is not permanent. It must be protected. Modern parallels. Historians often compare 1914 with today due to rising nationalism, regional conflicts, military alliances, global power rivalries. The lesson is not that war is inevitable, but that history repeats when warnings are ignored. Conclusion. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand teaches us that wars are rarely caused by one act alone. They emerge from fear, pride, rigid systems, and failed communication. Understanding 1914 is not about the past. It is about safeguarding the future. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand on 28 June 1914 in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip triggered a chain of diplomatic and military actions known as the July Crisis, leading directly to World War I. Although the assassination was the immediate cause, deeper factors such as nationalism, militarism, imperialism, and alliance systems made war likely. The conflict reshaped global politics, destroyed empires, and laid the groundwork for future wars. Key dates to remember: 1863. Birth of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, 28 June 1914. Assassination in Sarajevo, 23 July 1914. Austrian ultimatum to Serbia, 28 July 1914. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, 1914 to 1918. World War I, 1919. Treaty of Versailles. Important key terms with meanings: nationalism, strong loyalty to one's nation, often above others; militarism, building up armed forces and glorifying military power; alliance system, agreements between countries to support each other in war; July Crisis, diplomatic breakdown following the assassination; Black Hand, Serbian nationalist secret society; Young Bosnia, revolutionary group seeking Slavic independence; ultimatum, final set of demands backed by the threat of war; important personalities: Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne; Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg; his wife Gavrilo Princip; assassin and nationalist emperor Franz Joseph; ruler of Austria-Hungary Kaiser Wilhelm II; German Emperor Tsar Nicholas II; Russian Emperor. Important quotes for exams. The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime. Sir Edward Grey, British Foreign Secretary. A great war can only be the result of a great fear.